Now we go back to the beginning of يسألونك عن الأهلة هي مواقيت للناس والحج. This settles some issues with the calendar, which I don't think anyone in Islamic history did give it the right position completely. This relates to the issue. We know that visibility of the new moon of the crescent is a sign of that the new month is beginning next day. So if the new moon or the crescent is seen after sunset, then next day will be the first of the new month. And that's well established. That's the way Arabs define the lunar month. Anyway, the month is a lunar concept. It's not a solar concept. There's nothing in the solar movement which defines a month. In the month is arbitrary, just arbitrary division. We'll come to that just in a smaller note. So the month is really a lunar concept connected to the lunar movement, while the year is a solar concept, and combining them is a very difficult issue. But let us go to the lunar concept first. So it was established by Arab tradition, also the Hebrew tradition, also the tradition of the Babylonic and so on, is that watch for the moon, new moon, after sunset. The moment the sun has set, even with a millisecond, if the crescent is above the horizon, then tomorrow is the first of the month. If it is not, if it has set already or part of it has set, then tomorrow is the final day of this month, not the beginning of the next month. And the crescent will appear like that. So this is the horizon. If you look at the hand, the moon will appear like that, the crescent, the convex side toward the horizon. Maybe inclined like this, depending upon the azimuthal angle. Like some, the sun has set here and the moon is here, because they have a big azimuth difference after sunset, then it will be inclined like it. But it will never be the convex. So if someone claims he has seen a moon and saw something like that, he must be imagining, or he has seen a hair or some cloud, and he's confused. So that's the basic point to ask someone who has seen the moon. What have you seen? Describe what you have seen. If he doesn't see something like that, like a the two horns of the moon pointing up to the zenith and the convex side down to the horizon, then it is not the moon, it's something else. And this is the one way of the basic question to be asking anyone claiming he has seen the moon. Now, the moon sighting has become an issue, obviously, and the past Ramadan and all the Ramadans in our lifetime have been confusing, but also through history has always problems and back and forth about that. That's the reason for that is that there's a misunderstanding of first of the definition of the month. What is the real definition? The definition is clear. This is after sunset, the moon must be above the horizon. The new moon did not set yet. After obviously there was the birth of the moon, the day before there was nothing visibility. So that's clear. We're not talking about mid-down where you have a full moon, etc. But it's very obvious. It's the last day, the 29th or the 3rd day, we watch for it. And if we are relying on visibility. Now, the reason is that there is a problem with that, and the problem with how can we calculate that instead of visibility is a misunderstanding of the hadith. Let me tell you what the hadiths usually are quoted, and the classical fuqaha are usually stuck with it, which shows them, unfortunately, a level of shallowness of the understanding and negligence of the Quran. Not only shallowness, but the shallowness has come from negligence of the Quran. First of all, a fact is that the lunar and solar movement are very exact and can be calculated to a very high degrees of accuracy. That is specified by the Quran with certitude. Anyone denying that must have either mental problem or he doesn't think the Quran properly. Let me just mention some ayahs. We have in Surah Al-Isra, Allah says, جعلنا الليل والنهار آيتين فمحونا آية الليل وجعلنا آية النهار مبصرة تبتغوا فضلا من ربكم ولتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب وكل شيء فصلناه تفصيلا. We made day and night signs. So we erased the sign of night. You cannot see at night, that's the meaning of it, and made the sign of the day visible. You can see it because of the light. So that you can, in the day, you can try to get some benevolence and stones of your Lord, but also this alternation of these signs so that you know the numbers of years and you know accounts or calculus. And everything we have established and developed clearly. So that the word hisab, counting or calculation, is mentioned here, and so that you know the number of years. not the number of months, the number of years. Just hold to that. Another ayah, so it is there. So that is so regular that you can learn from it the number of years and you can learn hisab accounting. If you see what the fuqaha are discussing about lunar visibility, this ayah does not exist for them. They never read it or they never bothered about it. Next one. About Allah saying in Surah Al-An'am, فَالِقُ الْإِصْبَاحِ وَجَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ سَكَنًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ حُسْبَانًا. The one who broke the morning from the night, so the dawn break, the one who created the dawn break, and made the night at the time of tranquility and resting. And then he made sun and moon, both of them husban. Husban is a exaggeration form of hisab. Hisab is calculation. Husban is something like calculus. If you want to say, maybe take a Latin word, an exact calculation, calculus, a science of calculation. This is the taqdeer, the proportion of the exalted, the omniscient, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are husban, they are exact calculation. They can be exactly calculated. They are not haphazard. And you would say it's haphazard, cannot be calculated, so that he's ignorant or he declares the Quran to be false. Another ayah in Surah Al-Rahman, the famous one, Al-Rahman, Allam al-Quran, Al-Rahman taught the Quran, created man, taught him bayan, taught him to express himself, taught him language, taught him rationality, because language is expression of rationality. الشمس والقمر بحسبان. Sun and moon by exact accounting, بحسبان. And the surah continues. So they are not haphazard, they're بحسبان. Another place, وهو الذي خلق الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر كل في فلك يسبحون. He created night and day and sun and moon, or in one of them is is swimming in an orbit. Orbit usually, when you say falak, usually orbit. Falak is the basic word. Falak is that what the people use as the spin top, the top. So they are circular movement. So day and night does not appear in circular movement. That they're alternating, so that if you plot them as a mathematical plot, there will be a circular movement which you can express with sine and cosine. So there's no difference. But we don't see them circularly, but they are expressed mathematically circularly. So that's one. It doesn't say stress the issue of circularity, but the issue of regularity and really sinusoidal or rotational movement. Another ayah, وَآيَةٌ لَهُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ النَّارَ فَإِذَا هُمْ مُظْلِمُونَ. From the night we pull out the day or break out the day, so that they are break away the day, so they become darker. So you can see that by yourself. The moment when the night is pulled away from the day, at the end of the day when the sun sets, you see then the night comes from the east and coming slowly, overwhelming the sky until the last light in the west. The sunset is gone about like something like an hour and 20 after the sunset. So it's like you're pulling, like you're skinning an animal. Naslah, we pull it out, we skin it out. والشمس تجري مستقر لها ذلك تقدير العليم. And the sun is moving toward a certain direction by the establishment of the exalted and knowledgeable. And the moon we have established it as manazil, as positions or steps, until it had become like the old palm tree leaf, which becomes twisted and become like a crescent. So that's the manazil being the stages, full moon, half moon, etc. Neither the sun will reach the moon, nor the moon will reach the sun. Neither of one of them will reach the other, because they're different orbits and different places. ولا الليل يسابق النهار, nor the day will be ahead of the night will be ahead of the day. Everyone has its own orbit and its own circularity, and they are all again swimming in an orbit. So this is one addressing certain issues. And then the ayah we just read, so it is mawaqit, establishing times for people and Hajj. Nevertheless, you see, for example, a scholar who people praise as a rationalist and as a big philosopher, like Taymiyyah say, in his attack against those who are adopting the calculation for establishing the months, etc. What he says, let me read this in Arabic first and in English to say how misguided it could be if you don't consider the Quran and make it your Quran. What he says, إن الله لم يجعل لمطلع الهلال حسابا مستقيما. Allah did not establish for the rising of the moon or sunset of the moon a well-established, straightforward calculation. And the ayah says exactly the opposite. So he's stating here boldly and courageously Allah did not establish for himself. Allah said clearly He established the Hisab Mustaqim. So Mustaqim. ولم يضبطه شيء. The astronomer at his time did not follow its orbit except by questionable calculation, which does not follow a certain rule. At his time, it may be like that, but this is denying what Allah said. Instead of saying, at our time, we are not up to the level to know that hisab, that exact, which Allah has established in these ayahs. But one day we may get there. As long as we are not there, we should not allow a calculation. That may be a good argument, but not like the way he said. So it's just approximate. Maybe approximate at that time, but another time it will become not approximate, it will become exact or close to exact, more compelling and well established than, for example, visibility. And then he said things about the soothsayer and the astrology and so on. He's mixing astrology with the astronomy in a very confusing, and show that it, and he invoked the hadith. The Prophet said, "Whoever tried to drive knowledge from the stars, he is driving knowledge from witchcraft." What the Prophet meant is the soothsayer will say, if the star in this position, this is the lucky time. If this is the bad, that's the knowledge of the star. That's the astrology of that time, and that's related to witchcraft and things like that, but not astronomy like the lunar and lunar movements, which is established in the ayah. So he relied on misunderstanding the hadith of the Prophet and ignoring the complete set of the Quranic ayah, etc. So that's the idea. And he says other things that even to the level say whoever rely on establishing the damans based on calculation, he's committing a major haram, and he's following the way or not the way of the Kitab. He makes even violating the consensus of the Ummah, and he's following the way of the disbeliever. So you see how much mistakes are made. But the fundamental mistake is that said, Allah did not make for these movements an exact calculation. Allah made that at his time the people did not reach that exact calculation. It's okay, no problem. Nobody said that they have reached it at that time. Like for example, when the Prophet asked about the ruh, the spirit, which meaning what makes the animal move and perceive and so on, in contrast restriction to stones and rocks, and in contrast to trees. What makes animals move and perceive and react and so on? What the people call ruh. That's usually attributed to ruh. And there's a difference between dawat al-arwah. Usually dawat al-arwah means the animals who have a blood circulation. And the others who, even the lower animals who don't have blood circulation, do not seem to be similar to animals. They're more similar to trees or something like that. And that's what they question. What makes animals move and perceive and so on? That's what they call the people is that due to the ruh. They ask, what is that ruh? What is this ruh? What the Quran said them? Ruh is from my Lord's command. You have very little knowledge. It's impossible to explain to them blood circulation at the time, explain the composition of cells. It's impossible to explain the DNA and the chromosome. That would be completely impossible. There's no even not even the minimal condition to start this conversation. So the best thing to say is from Allah's command, from Allah's creation, Allah's order of the universe, and you have only little knowledge. Maybe one day if you have more knowledge, you know more. That's it. So that all was neglected by many scholars as well, and also by the major of the Salafi regarded as the peak of human intelligence. And Ibn Taymiyyah, that has been neglected. So that's concerning that. So there is these things are established with exactness. The only problem is that humans maybe have not reached at a certain time this level of exactness. Now we go to the hadith where they went. The hadith, all the hadith actually essentially going 2 or 3 hadith. About the visibility. We have the master hadith, the hadith from Abdullah ibn Umar. Why it is the master one? Because he said clearly that he heard the messenger of Allah saying that. So while the hadith of Ibn Abbas and others, they say, Qala Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah said. So they may have heard it, or they may hear it from another Sahabi or many Sahabis. So they're convinced that's the meaning, but we have no certitude that these wording are exactly the same. So the hadith of Umar about visibility of the moon, the 2 hadith of Umar. One is say two of importance. One is the what about the visibility. So the messenger of Allah said concerning I have here the isnad. I will not read them, for example, because it's to be too heavy for but it is ending when Ibn Umar said, the Messenger of Allah said in this version. Another verse, I hear the Messenger of Allah say. Anyway, either one of it, he heard it. And he was in Medina when the Siyam was enacted. He was not out of age yet. He was maybe 13 years old or something like that. But this is an age which you can comprehend and understand and possibly even participate in fasting, even if it's only voluntary. He said, the Messenger of Allah said, إنما الشهر 29 فلا تصوموا حتى تروا. The month is 29 days, so don't start fasting until you see the moon, and don't break the fasting until you see the moon. But if it is clouded, فقدروا له. That's right, فقدروا له. Then estimate for it, calculate for it. تقدير, we mentioned the taqdir when we talk about qada and qadar. Taqdir is not is meaning putting things in proportion, calculated appropriately, tighten it as it should be, calculate for it, make taqdir. And we mentioned also when you spoke about the day which is like a year long. I don't think it was in tafsir or another situation. We discussed that the days of the Dajjal, one of them is 1 year, 6 months, 6 months. And they ask about salah. Is it enough to have one salah or 5 salat in that year long day? Or we have no, they do estimate day by day. So every day, every 24 hours is having 5 salah. And you have to estimate. I think it was in the previous halaqah. Anyway, or a previous halaqah, or another issue. So taqdeer, evaluate for it, calculate for it. That's the narration from Abdullah ibn Umar, and most narration end with this word, taqdiru lahu. So it says, it's clear. The month, Sha'ban, any month, 29. If it is happen to be Sha'ban, then we expect tomorrow maybe Ramadan, maybe not, Ramadan, maybe not. Don't start fasting until you have seen the moon. So tomorrow is really the fast. Don't try to preempt the month by being overcautious. Or try. But if it is cloudy and you cannot see the moon, and you have no report from outside the cloud area that the moon has been seen, that's also included in the other tradition, then make taqdeer. It doesn't say completed 30, or some other narrations say completed 30, narrated by other Sahaba, and some narrator from Ibn Umar added that from their own imagination. But the original narration is taqdiru lahu. Taqdiru lahu could be calculate what is the most exact thing to be. Maybe your calculation show, yeah, it is cloudy, but the calculation show this month is 29, so tomorrow must be the best. If the calculation, if a reliable calculation there, it should be followed. So that wording is the word follow the taqdeer, the calculation. The other people say complete 30. This is another wide calculation. If you don't have any other calculation and it's doubtful, you don't know what's going on, then follow the certainty. The certainty is that there may be another day. So at a 30th day. In any case, don't fast only as a preemptive of the month, as a cautionary pre-measure. Because if you do it as a cautionary pre-measure, you fall in the mentality of extremism in the religion, become overcautious, become worried, become mentally deranged. Yeah, you see my point? You see the point about this? If you try to preempt it, this means you are afraid to miss it. You are not missing anything. You are going to fast. If you start tomorrow, in the day of doubt, which is obedience to Allah's Messenger, you are going to get a full month. If you start a day after that, you are going to get a 29 or 30 days. You are not missing anything. It's just extreme mindset, thinking you are missing something and the universe is going to collapse. No, it's as simple as that. If you start your month tomorrow, then it will go 90, 29 or 30 days. If you start one day after tomorrow, it will go to 30 days. You are not missing anything. You are getting a full month anyway. It's impossible to have it otherwise. So this is the mentality of the one who thinks everything is haram, everything is prohibited. Behind every wall there is a beast. Behind this wall there are spies. In the next street corner is someone with a machine gun. This is the obsessed mentality of Daesh and so on. That's it develops until you become a Daesh. From starting from a small one until you become a Daesh. Preemptive fasting, who fasts the day of doubt has obeyed Allah, disobeyed Allah and His Messenger. So the day of doubt is not crucial by itself whatsoever. Only the mentality, fasting the day of doubt while you are doubting, is a sign of mentally going into extremes and regarding everything to be questionable, dangerous, and there's no danger. Absolutely no danger. Let's assume you missed the rest of the month. Someone came after you missed that day later on and told you that it has been seen. No problem. You make a day after that. No, nothing has happened. No major problem. No calamity in the universe. Simple. There's nothing serious happening there. So the main hadith of Ibn Umar is the faqdiru lahu. Other hadith say فَأَتِمُّ 30. another one hadith أقدر 30, calculate or estimate 30. But a well-established one is hadith ibn Umar, this أقدر له without any addition. But Prophet said the month is 29 and then you watch. If it is clouded, then make taqdeer without specifying what the taqdeer is. The taqdeer will be, if you don't have any calculation method, the taqdeer is that it may be 30, so we complete 1 day for this month. That's the simplest possible way of taqdeer for pure or illiterate. That's enforced by other hadith of Ibn Umar related to that, but usually related separately. Most likely it's also in a separate occasion. The Prophet said, gave the reason for that. And this is a very important reason. He said, that's all in Bukhari, so all major hadith, Bukhari, Muslim, on all major hadith, and you can regard that as one of the most verified hadith and discussed at the time of Sahaba. There's no issue about that whatsoever. So it is, establishment is not an issue. Even with the Shia, the same. I could read some what Sistani has given a fatwa, which is slightly better than Ibn Taymiyyah, but it's as bad as matter of doubting the calculation and so on. They have the same, both Sunni and Shi'i have the same negative mindset about calculation, because all of them relied on the hadith and narration, and none of them bothered to read the Quran clearly with an open eye. But let's go back here. What I have said, Inna ummatun ummiyah. We are an illiterate nation. We are an illiterate nation. لا نكتب ولا نحسب. We don't write and we don't calculate. This is definitely with certitude referring to the time of Prophet ﷺ. And maybe after that for some generation. It doesn't refer to the Ummah until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Nor does it refer to a desirable state of affair who should be kept and honored and respected. No, it just say that's a factual situation. So why it mentioned that? Mention the illah. Based on that, at the current stage of knowledge and the current stage of cultural, sophistication, educational level, based on that, الشهر هكذا وهكذا. The month is 10, 10, and 9. And sometimes this is 10, 10, 10, 30. So the month may be 29, 20, 30. Basically. So we are not at loss. Even if we are in the state of being illiterate and calculate, nothing major will happen. But with certitude, the month is either 29 or 30. It can't be either. It can't be 28 and it can't be 31. It's impossible. Now, if that's the illah for establishing the month being that, and he mentioned the general rule that the month could be 29 or 30, that's fine. No problem with that, as long as we're illiterate. But if we are literate and we are able to calculate, meaning we don't need to rely on this. We know it will be either 29 or 30, but we may be able to calculate this month is 29, the other one is 30, the next one is 30, the next one 29, 29, 30, and so on. Whatever the calculation brings out. So with these two things together with the solve the problem. One problem and the other hadith which is complete 30 and so on are most likely not as well established as the hadith of Ibn Umar. As I said, Ibn Umar, the one he did directly from the Messenger of Allah, and there are many channels of narration, not only Nafi', almost every student of Ibn Umar narrated from him. So the only thing remaining is to accuse Ibn Umar of lying or that he made a mistake. And this is almost impossible to imagine. There's no reason for him to lie. It's not an issue of lying. And secondly, there's no reason for such a small issue of 7 or 10 words and a couple of sentences to make a mistake, and an issue which is obviously clear and so obvious and be repeated several Ramadans. So that's we can exclude that. So we could say this is not only sahih, established beyond reasonable doubt, because it's almost bordering on certitude. It's almost certain that this is correct, including the one with the Ummah. There was one incident which confused the issue for many people extra. But it should not be confusing. Issue of that various places may have different visibility. Yeah. So based on this, let's go to the various places. There's the visibility later. But let's based on that. If we take that seriously, plus the ayahs, then there is no reason really, if we become an ummah which is literate and capable of calculation, and if we establish calculation has become accurate enough, is to rely on calculation. Some people say, but hadith say fast for his seeing and break the fast for its seeing. Yeah, but the seeing is only a mean to establish knowledge that the crescent is above the horizon. That's it. How do we know with the eyesight, with the simplest way of knowing that the sun has set and the moon is still above the horizon? Obviously, the moon, you cannot see the full moon. What you see is just the border which is illuminated by the sun, the crescent, by seeing. But the seeing by itself is not intended. It has no virtue in the seeing itself. What the seeing is a mean to establish its existence above the horizon. That's all that the seeing means. Evidence for that is that you don't need to see by yourself. You can rely on someone seeing on your behalf, and the witness which is reliable and testify under oath, or you rely upon him. And he, even in Umar, one day narrated in another narration said one time the month we were out to try to see the moon. Just means necessarily it was the 29th, because in the 30th they don't know go to see. It is 30 days, خلاص, finished. Great, tomorrow is the best. No need to go and watch for the moon. You don't need to bother at all to see the moon. But it was the 29th of a certain month of Sha'ban during the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And then we were going out to Nitra al-Hilal. And Ibn Umar was young at the time. Obviously, his eyesight was excellent at that time. And they say, I saw the Hilal. And they mentioned, informed the Messenger of Allah, and they ordered the people, the son of Umar saw it, tomorrow we'll fast the first of Ramadan. So here, and we will discuss it. Can you rely on one witness or two witnesses and so on? These are secondary issues. I would say they're not relevant for the reason that the Prophet knew that, or trusted Ibn Umar eyesight and capability, maybe knew by wahi that it's really the next day, the first one, whatever, but that was enough to tell the people, Ibn Umar saw it, we start tomorrow, is enough. So he has that, he gained knowledge with high level of confidence that the moon is above the horizon after the sun has set, because this is the standard seeing, and ordered the people to fast. So the seeing, although he himself did not see it, the seeing is not desirable by itself. It's just a tool to establish knowledge. Now, most the word, which word yara, ru'ya, and seeing and vision in Quran, mostly used to indicate knowledge, not to indicate really eyesight. I just collected a few examples just for fun. I counted, there are 31 places which start with, in Quran, start with the phrase alam tara, didn't you see? I'll mention only 4 of them because you don't have to go through all of them. 31 in the Quran, you can check them with any index search in the Mus'haf. 2 of them in Surah Al-Baqarah. One of this, Allah asked, didn't you see those who left their homes and countries afraid of death? Then Allah told them, die, and they died. And then He revived them to show them running away from your home out of fear of death will not save you from death. Death is going to get you, here or there. So you should not have run away from your home. And then He made that a favor on them, and they returned back to their home alive. So didn't you see? The Prophet was not at that time. He could not possibly see. But said, didn't you know? As if you are seeing it. Another one also in Baqarah, I think. Allah addressed Alam tara ila al-mala' in Bani Israel. Did you see the leadership or the elite of the children of Israel after Musa, when they went to a prophet of them and asked him to establish a king for them? We'll come to that inshallah later, the issue of kingdom and so on. That is in the time of the prophet Samuel. You can read it in the Old Testament, Samuel 1, when they came and asked for a king, for fighting, etc. The whole story is there, and we'll go through that because it's a very important story related to many issues. Allah said, didn't you see? Didn't you gain knowledge as if you have seen it? It is such a fact that you didn't see it, but you should have seen it. You must know it as if you have seen it. That's the second one. That's also in Baqarah, and we will come to it soon. A third one, also in Baqarah, in this surah, when Allah suggests even an ancient, something is much more ancient, is the time of Ibrahim. Didn't you, the one who argued with Ibrahim about his Lord? It's impossible for the Prophet to see. It's something went before the Prophet with 2,500 years, because Ibrahim is about 2,000 years before Christ, and the Prophet's 500 is 2.5 millennia before him. It's impossible to see that. Didn't you see? Didn't you know, as if you have seen it, that some guy, some king argues with Ibrahim about his Lord, because he had the kingdom and he became arrogant. I thought he is the divine being. He's the one who established life and death. And let me finish the story. This is a neat one. It's worth finishing on its own ground. So Ibrahim told him, my Lord is the one who gives life and death, meaning the usual meaning, the one created life and death. And this idiot said, I can't give life and death. And he ordered 2 from the prison, ordered one to be executed and the other one to be released, and gave life and death. So Ibrahim was fed up with this guy argument. Say, okay, if we're going this channel of playing games with words, my Lord, bring the sun from the east. So show me if you can bring it from the west. فبهت الذي كفر. The disbeliever was in a state of shock that he was speechless. And Allah does not guide the unjust people. Cannot answer. We came to you something reasonable about life and death, meaning who created life and death. And you get two poor guys from prison killing one, the other one claiming that you have control over life. That's not the meaning of the question. But now give you something which there is no escape from it. Allah bring the sun from the east, bring it from the west. If you are really divine, if you are really a divine being, obviously he can't. So he was speechless. He was stopped in his track. But also it started Alam Tara. And the famous one, which everyone, almost every child knows, because one of the small and last surah of the Quran, surah number 105, Surah Al-Fil, the elephant. Didn't see what your Lord did with the people of elephant. Did you see? But that's closer time to the Prophet, but he was born in the year of elephant. You could not have seen that anyway. So ru'ya in the Quran is mostly used for indicating gaining knowledge, which is as certain as if you gained it by vision, by seeing it in the sense of seeing with the eyesight. So ru'yati does not mean necessarily on the Prophet is infallible using his word. It is not حتى تبصر الهلال, use the word basar, which is more toward the really seeing with the eye or something like that. So ru'yati, ru'ya. And this is also supported by the fact that he accepted the ru'ya of someone else. Although he's at this time, you as a nation, so it's enough one see it the same way and the same logic. So it's enough if someone calculated as good, if the calculation is as good and reliable as seeing it. So if you take all these evidences and read the Quran and make the Quran the master and the address, then you see that all these arguments of the pure past and that, like for example, Ibn Taymiyyah argued that the calculation is not exact and reliable, maybe at his time, but the worst part of it is that Allah did not establish a calculation without denying all these ayah. A little bit better is Sistani at this time. Yes, some people say, oh, the visibility is arguable. Some people it's visible if it is 5 degrees above the horizon. Some people say, oh, it's possible to see it for 4 degrees higher, but he also missed the point. It's not 5 or 4 degrees. It has to be above the horizon whatsoever. That human eyesight can separate the lunar crescent from the massive light of the sun in the horizon. If it is only 5 or 4 degrees above the, if it is closer, it's impossible to see because of the brightness of the horizon. This is only because of the shortcoming of the eyes. That's all. That's all. That's not an argument. But it's above the horizon or not. If we can calculate it reliably with certitude, then this will substitute even better than the sea. Then we've left the ru'ya, the visibility, according to the eye, to the visibility according to the knowledge by calculation, which is more affirming and more compelling, provided that we have definite calculation which reaches the level of husban according to the Quran. And it has reached. We know it has reached now. We know that with certitude. We know exactly how to do that nowadays. Almost for 2 centuries, roughly, we know that. Before that, we did not know to that level of accuracy. And maybe a few centuries before, we knew a level of accuracy was better even than visibility. So the whole discussion about visibility, how many degrees above or no, is futile. It's not productive. It's taking visibility as it must be with the eye. And even some people indulge, is it permissible to use tools, telescopes and so on? This is all stupidity. The moment you see the Quran and you see the understanding and the meaning and the hadith, you understood what it means. What is needed is that the definition of the lunar month is not when the new moon is born. It is the definition because the month is divided in days, and days are again a solar phenomenon. So the month is divided in days. Day 1, day 2, day 3. It's not divided in hours like from the hour of the birth of new moon. That's not the way the Sharia month, the human month is defined, the calendar month, the calendar day. The calendar day is defined either from midnight until midnight, or from sunset until the other sunset, or from sunrise until the usual things used are usually from sunset. That's used by the Arabs and the Jews and the Semites generally, and the Babylonian is that from the sunset until the next sunset. And the night starting with the sunset is named according to the day coming. So today, for example, we are on Sunday. The sunset today will be like around 9 o'clock, 9 something. Okay. The moment the sunset, what should we call that night? The Arab tradition and the Jewish tradition and the Babylonian tradition is to call this night is the night of Monday. It's called the night before the daylight. That's by the convention of the Arab. That's the convention established by the Sharia. That's one way to do that. But it is from certain cut or event, heavenly event, to another heavenly event. Other way, which astronomers are using, and may have standing, may have reason when we speak about the Salah and Salah times, is that from midnight until midnight. And this is also a good way of in that case, Sunday is continuing until midnight, which is according because of this stupid daylight saving is 1 o'clock. Normally it should be 12 or something, plus a few minutes and so on, depending upon which longitude you are exactly on. But let us say we are really on the 0 longitude, almost at Greenwich, and it will be exactly 12 in the winter or 1. So until it is still Sunday until midnight, which is in the summer according to the clock definition, called 1 o'clock, or in winter it's called 12. This is all conventional. The clock is shifting. The clock is just shifting of numbers. It's just conventional. The reality is midnight, the strict midnight, until the next midnight. That's another definition. For the Sharia purposes, and Siyam and Hajj and so on, that's the way it is established in the Islamic, in the Arabic, in the Hebrew, and in the Babylonian tradition, is that the naming of the days, the counting of the days. For Monday, we are now on Sunday. Agreement, everyone agrees. Those who count from midnight to midnight, those are grouped from sunset to sunset, to sunrise, this noon time is definitely Sunday, no doubt about that. But after sunset, immediately the night of Monday starts. If you know that convention, that is that. So this is the night of Monday. And the daylight after that is all Monday until the sunset. Then the night of Tuesday starts, etc. Or if you follow the midnight, then we are still on Sunday until midnight. Then Monday starts after midnight. Either convention is acceptable for Siyam, for the usual standard calculation for every aspect, from sunset to sunset. So the claim of astronomers that we should start from the new moon, etc. But this will be does not give us complete numbers of days in a conventional way. It gives something broken, something non-conventional. And that's for astronomy, maybe. For astronomy, we work with minutes and seconds. It doesn't bother of days and nights. And they work with so-called Julian days. They don't need all of that. But that's not astronomical convention. It's the legal convention. The legal convention is that it has to be fixed somehow. Somehow is that in the usual Sharia convention, it is usually from sunset to sunset. Then the moon has to be above the horizon when the sun has set, which ushers the beginning of the allegedly the next day anyway. But is it the first of the next month or it is the last of this month? But it's the beginning. The sun has set. We started now exactly the next day, according to the convention. And if the crescent is above the horizon, then this is that's the condition for this starting new days that would start with the sunset to be number 1 for the coming one. If it is not, then it is still number 30 of this one. That's it. Simple. This is nothing worth shattering there. There is no need to march armies and fight and declare someone to be heretic or deviant or something for such some trivial and basic things. So that's I think that's if it is developed this way, with the fundamental assertion that the Quran is the leader first and the Hadith has to be regarded as further explanation and or possibly further elaboration or further easement. Like the Hadith of that we are an illiterate nation is an easement. Currently, we are not able to do the calculation. Actually, nobody in the world was able to do the calculation at that time. Neither the Romans nor the Byzantine, because maybe the Babylonian could have been able to do, but their culture and their essentially declined, and the science and knowledge did not continue as it should have been, were it not for the Christian persecution of science and burning of libraries and so on. That happened. The Library of Alexandria was burned by the Christian. Many learning centers in Europe and in Cyprus were burned, and many scholars and philosophers ran away to have the protection of the Sassanids, and they were in Jind Sabur and in Harran under Sassanid control. And a few escaped to Lebanon, and but this is people of the law, essentially. There was a legal school in Beirut, that's all. But all where the Christian empire was in control, then knowledge and scrutiny and philosophy was banned and persecuted. That's the historic fact. Painful fact, that's it. I think Christian churches do not like to be reminded of that, but that's the reality. So the coming of Islam saved all that ancient culture and developed it further. Also, the Assassini played a role because of their hostility to the Romans and their prevalent belief there was not a Christianity, although they have Nestorian Christian, they are taking refuge, but generally the Sassanid Empire was a Zoroastrian empire, not a Christian empire. So they were happy to give protection for those rebels against Christianity in their domain. That's what saved all literature. But I was just saying there was no real development and further prosperity of knowledge and science. It stopped really essentially maybe 1 or 2 centuries before Christ. But there was no major, there were few developments, but nothing major here, no breakthrough, no accumulated knowledge. What is essentially the coming of Islam saved that knowledge and imported knowledge from India and China, merged that together and advanced further until we got it saved and continued until today. So that's okay in that time, but that's this time are gone. Now we can't do it. So we should be doing a calculation. Why the reason for that? Because this way we will be having a consistent and correct calendar. But there will be a problem that if we have not a complete calendar, because we have the issue of the differences of the various places on the earth concerning moon set and moon rise somehow. And that problem has been compounded by the following story. Quraib, the Mawla, the freed slave of Abdullah bin Abbas, narrated, I traveled al-Fadl, the mother of Fadl, which is the older brother of Abbas. She is also the mother of Abbas. al-Fadl, al-Fadl, send me for something to Damascus in the time of Muawiyah, when he absorbed the Khilafah and became Khalifa. So I went there. Ramadan came when I was there. We saw the moon, and he himself saw it, and Muawiyah saw it, everyone saw it, and they started fasting, let us say Friday. They saw it Thursday evening, I think, if I'm mistaken. But anyway, it doesn't matter the day. They saw it Thursday evening, so they started fasting Friday. Then he finished the business of al-Fadl, and he rode back, arrived in Medina before the end of the month. The travel from Damascus and Medina will take something like 25 days, something like around that. So he arrived before the Eid time. And then Ibn Abbas asked him casually, I finished the business of mother yesterday. What happened there? You started the fasting there? Say, yes, we saw it on Thursday, and Muawiyah saw it, and the people saw it. And Ibn Abbas asked me, did you see it by yourself? Say, yes, I saw it also. And we started fasting by Friday. And we continued. And then on the trip, maybe he was not fasting because he was traveling, whatever he did. But we started on Friday. Friday was the first of Ramadan for us there in Damascus. And they kept that going here. And Ibn Abbas said, but we saw it for Saturday. So we started Saturday. So they saw it on Friday. We saw it on Saturday. And we started on Saturday. That's no problem until now. Now Ibn Quraib said, but we have visibility for Muawiyah and co there and the people in Damascus. Not only Muawiyah not accept his witnesses. Maybe Ibn Abbas does not accept the witness of Muawiyah. He regard him as munafiq or fasiq or kafir. But the people, and they saw it. They say, no, we don't adopt that. We saw it on Saturday. We stick to our Saturday seeing. And the people interpreted that for a week. Most scholars feel that Ibn Abbas took consideration that for such big distance, the rise and set of moon and sun can differ. And it's true. If you look in the air in such a distance, it's very well possible that there's a visibility in Damascus or not in Medina or vice versa. We can calculate even in that time that happened really physically. Maybe in Medina, nobody of good eyesight has seen anything, and just they missed it. Maybe it should have been seen on Friday. We don't know physically, but it's irrelevant. I say it's not relevant. It's the matter of that you have it, you started. The only mistake would be 1 plus day or minus day. That's absolutely no problem. Sharia and trying to preempt it by being overcautious will develop you into a crazy, obsessed mentality. So the people got stuck with that the differences of matali', big distance, when they were a big dispute. What is big distance? What is the differences? How it should be done should be taken into consideration. So this will create obviously a problem that every area or every people is visibility. And then the scholars obviously went all kinds of avenues tried to establish what someone say it is within one country, but one country could be very big. Look at Russia, for example. Russia is very well extended from almost the border of Kazakhstan until the border of Belarus now. And in time before, it was even from Vladivostok to the border of Poland. That's a huge distance. There were different differences in rise and set. And it goes from North Pole all the way to Turkmenistan. Huge distances, quarter the length of that. So there'll be. So claiming this, if each political entity follows the political leadership, does not make any sense. Besides, Ibn Abbas obviously did not follow, because that was one country under one Khalifa, even if it's an usurper, but it doesn't matter. It is still one political entity. So we say, no, it looks at if it's a big distance, like traveling distance, and then waiver in so many things. Anyway, the reality that there may be differences is without any doubt. And you can see, for example, every year there will be tables which show you like a curve where visibility is here possible, here is not possible, and so on. And you see various places, there are places on earth where visibility is possible, and another is not possible at the same calendar day. So how to solve this problem? That's the next problem, which will prevent unifying the Muslims on one calendar or one fasting day. So it seems to be unsolvable. We are back to the same issue. So if it is solved, then it does not make much difference if we calculate or not calculate. Although calculation in advance is good in the sense that, for example, if we calculate that the beginning of Ramadan and so on will be next year and the year after next, we can calculate now actually accurately up to 100 years in advance. Then we have a table, and then I can do my reservation. I can do my reservation for Eid celebration or for Eid prayer in a park or something like that well in advance, and manage everything correctly. I don't need to wait for any eye visibility, because it's not needed anymore. We have something better than eye visibility. So it helps them. But how to get then a unified Muslim world or a unified Muslim calendar? Now, the ayah we are now today is giving us the hint. This one will solve the problem. Let's go to the ayah again. What does the ayah say? If we read the ayah, يسألونك عن الأهلة. They ask you about the new moons or the crescents. Say it is timing, مواقيت, or timing for the people. والحج وليس البرزة. The word al-hajj seems to be inserted there, but there's no necessity to complete a meaning. If you remove it from the ayah, which I'm not allowed to do that, but I mean just technically, just as a new sentence, the ayah would be perfect, the meaning would be complete. No need to mention al-hajj whatsoever there. Because مواقيت للناس, establishing time and a calendar for the people, everything. So why mentioning al-hajj specifically there? It's also establishing time for al-hajj, no doubt about that. I'm no doubt about that. But why mentioning hajj specifically? It can establish also time for harvest, for example. Establish so many things. The time for Ramadan, for example, is more important than hajj in this context, maybe. Or the time, because Ramadan is the time of bringing the zakah, for example. Maybe the state will enact the last day of the 25th of Ramadan, that's the zakat day. It's something like that. So why mention hajj? The mentioning of the hajj, I argue, is because the hajj is both have a timing and have a location. When I say al-hajj meaning al-hajj where? Not to China, not to North Pole, not to South Catherine, al-hajj to the sanctuary in Mecca. So that's with the word hajj, we connected space and time. So it is established timing for everything, for humanity, but also established timing for hajj. Now, if it established timing for hajj, meaning if we do all the calculation for Mecca for hajj, for the hajj time, and everyone does his Ramadan calculation in his area, we don't have a consistent calendar. So you say, what's the fault in the a calendar cannot be, the calendar must be consistent. If it is not consistent, following the same rule, it cannot be from Allah. It has deviations. it will be contradictory. So if I do the calculation in New Delhi, for example, based on the calculation, leave the visibility, strict, good calculation in New Delhi, then the calculation will bring it at the beginning of the Hajj month, nominally on the paper, is this and this day. But the calculation in Mecca will bring it in another day. So the two calculations do not synchronize, and the Hajj here, Hajj, according to that, is not the Hajj like that. And this means these two calendars cannot be from Allah, cannot be approved by Allah. They have to synchronize. And the only way they can synchronize, because the rise and set of the moon depend upon the location, evidently, as proved by astronomy and also by the hadith of Ibn Abbas, that we not follow Ibn Abbas, because these are statements of Ibn Abbas, his point of view, or assume that Ibn Abbas did that because of necessity of his time. For his time, there was no way to know that in time, by there was no broadcast to know it, etc. The only way is that we say the calendar should be calculated according to the visibility or the calculated visibility, or the calculation, the exact calculation, according to a certain location on Earth, which is the reference point of Salah, and Qibla, and for Hajj, Mecca. Exactly, if we wanted to specify the exact point to be excessively exact, and this is okay. You can take that also in the calculation. All the calculation programs ask you for the location. You can give it to the accuracy of even the center of the Kaaba for that exact place, or exactly that place. Then you have a consistent calendar all over the world and calculated. So if that's adopted, that calculation is proper and should substitute for visibility, according to the hadith. We are illiterate ummah, and according to the hadith, تقدروا له, calculate for it, or estimate for it, or do proportional estimation for it, تقدروا له. Plus, that there is one place which is distinguished, in which things are connected there, both time and space, because Hajj in Mecca is not only a place, it's also a time. But Hajj is the people have to be in Arafat on the 9th of the Hijjah. And the 9th of the Hijjah is the 9th day of the Hijjah, which started number one. I started number one in Mecca, not in China, not in Delhi. But this will not synchronize with any calendar. The Ramadan starts according to any place in the earth differently. It has to be, if it's a consistent, logic, proper calendar. And we can assume that Allah will say, Mawqit lin-nas should be established, and for Hajj also must be the same miqat, the same calendar. And well, at least it should be desirable. So the ultimate calendar will be calculate everything properly, forget about visibility, forget about telescope, forget all of this. These arguments are going back and forth now for centuries, completely futile. And the argument will never end as long as you go back to the Quran and recognize that all these things are exactly calculated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and set in their place with utmost exactness for span. Secondly, that Allah pointed to Al-Hajj there, that's pointing to a place, and the time also, they must be synchronized there and synchronized all over the world. Then you have a synchronized calendar. One reference point of the earth, which is the place of Hajj. And the time of Hajj will be calculated there, and every time will be calculated everywhere in the world. Someone will say, this may be different than the visibility. I may be able to see, for example, I'm in China, I see the moon, but according to the calendar, the correct calendar calculated in Mecca, tomorrow is for me, the month is complete, and I'm missing the first month for me. No, you are not missing. It's for the whole ummah. It is the month, the beginning of Ramadan in Mecca. Even if you see the moon in the sky or don't see the moon, it's not relevant. It's not relevant. And even if someone can, there's a point of view, it's relevant, and then you are not, you think you should be fasting tomorrow, but the people in Mecca and the rest of the world will be fasting one day after tomorrow, that's no problem. You are joining the ummah, and you are missing nothing, because you will be fasting 29 or 30 days anyway. So what's the fuss of Ramadan, one day for what, one day back? If it is clouded and you don't have calculation, and you make a wrong estimation, you start, and at the end of the month you recognize it was wrong. Let's assume you start fasting mistakenly one day ahead of time. Let's assume that, for example, because it was clouded, then you have no calculation, and you are living in the jungle or in the Amazon, you have no other knowledge or technology. Okay, fine. You started, and then you continued until the end of the month, and there's still no moon to see. You are not allowed to look at it. You are allowed only to complete 30. And then you continue the 30 days. Whatever you are forced to, or 29, and you have break after that. The only problem happened is that the visibility in the beginning and the end are wrong, like happened in Saudi Arabia in the 70s. And the people ended fasting 28 days. And then there was a need of fatwa that the people have to make that day up sometimes because there was a mistake. They admitted that there was a mistake in the visibility, despite of all these tapanus. Because the month can be 29, cannot be or 30, cannot be 28. So you missed one day. That's all. Easy. It's substituted. In that case, joining the Ummah in the unified calendar negate the need for you to even to look at the more or consider that. You consider that calendar is the valid calendar which is binding for every Muslim. Well, that's fine. And you are not going to miss any day of Ramadan whatsoever. Because Ramadan is just established by convention, by this calculation, by the Mecca coordinates, and that's enough. This is the proper calendar establishment, which which is perfectly nice and without any problem. And there's no problem. You will never get a Ramadan 28. This way will never happen. Never happen to be 31 because the calculation will always bring 29 or 30. The only thing is that which day it starts. That's it. And that's start for everyone in the world in that day. And even in that, we'll have the classical problem of all day starts. It starts from the date line in the Pacific. From there onward, the day is counted, not for the opposite. So it goes from there until it turns to America and complete the circle. That's going also to happen. And this way we have established it. And you establish that this side, the side of Makkah, and the Makkah location is the one which defines the name of the day. So we started, Ramadan is starting by, let's say Sunday, so on and so on in the solar calendar. It has nothing to do with the moon rise and moon set. That when is that day? Sunday. Sunday starting from the date line, east of Japan, going all the way to Japan, westbound, not eastbound. That's the way the day goes. All the way. So the Japanese start at the beginning of their Sunday, maybe ahead of us about 12 hours. That's when the calculation brings that Ramadan, next Ramadan will start a Sunday. Then their Sunday started that, a Sunday, the 21st of July, let us say. Just arbitrary number coming in my mind. They started that Sunday, well ahead of us. Go. Maybe when the time reaches us, then for us to start our fasting, they already almost near the sunset, the time they break their fast. It's perfect. Let's go all the way to America and so on. So we are after them, America is after us, until the circle is completed. And it goes on like that until Ramadan is over. So I would say this ayah with mentioning al-Hajj, which is in this word, it seems to be inserted, or is not necessary. It's definitely not necessary in the matter of mawaqit, but it is very important in connecting the time to the location, but also hence also the rest of the surah, because coming back from Hajj and Umrah, which is again in Makkah, both of them, people regard it as pious to enter the houses from its back. So it connects both. It's hinting that this coming back is not coming back from a business trip to China or something. No, it's coming back from Hajj. That's the people regarding as righteousness. And that the Quran is addressing, that your Hajj and Umrah is not complete until you mount the house from the back instead of from the front. But it was never addressing anything that someone coming from, there may be a tradition coming from China after business trip that you come from the back. That's irrelevant. This is just a convention which does not seem to be rational or very useful. Well, if the people adopt it, it's no problem. But what's the problem is that to adopt that coming from Hajj and Umrah and regarding as the right person. So the word Hajj also connect to the next of the ayah. But it's very well possible that it will be taken with the word al-Hajj would have been taken without doing any major harm to the meaning of the ayah, neither the first part or the second part. So the reasons for the word al-Hajj there is of utmost importance for the calendar synchronization and localization, and also a good hint that is coming back and mounting houses from the back instead of from front is not. But we know if you ask what is the meaning, is that they regard it as pious coming from Hajj and Umrah anyway. So there's no need for the word Hajj to be mentioned so that people understand. Because people knew that coming back from Hajj and Umrah, they regarded in Jahiliyyah this is pious to go there, not coming back from Syria or Yemen in a business trip. They never did it. So that's clearly addressed. I don't need to mention Hajj for that purpose also. But it's also a hint that this issue is related to Hajj. And by extension, the minor Hajj Umrah. So I think this ayah is very crucial. It contains tons of issues there of fundamental importance. First of all, not answering a question which the people cannot understand or make any sense of the response. So they ask what's about Ahillah, how they form, and so on. they did not have the tools. That's very similar to the question about ruh, the spirit, the soul. What is the soul? And the answer was that it's from the action, from the from the affairs of my Lord. And you don't have enough knowledge now at the moment. So opening a small gap that we may have more knowledge and we may know more about the ruh. In the case of Ahilla, there was no mention of something like that because already the lunar and solar movements have been tons of times in the Mecca Quran mentioned that they have exact calculation and they're Husban. So one day, if you are able to calculate, you will be able to do it and you will understand how it comes. So we need to mention here that it is one day that you don't have enough knowledge. No need for that. It's already established in Mecca that they are according to an exact calculation. What's the exact calculation? In due course, you will learn it. So this ayah is despite its shortness, contains really considerable amount of information and hints and interesting aspects. One of the deeper aspects is that such symbolism, like changing the entrance of the house or so, people may invent something like that. Sometimes it has something like a meme and things like symbolism, but sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it does not make sense. But if you want to make it making sense in sense of piety and righteousness and pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have to rely on revelation. Like for example, the Prophet used to, when we go to the prayer of Eid, which is usually established outside the city. So all the city and all the people of the city, men and women, even menstruating women, go out like in a demonstration of the ummah. So they all come together and pray together and supplicate together. When he goes in one way, and he's come back or come for another way. Why come from another way? Or go from another way? This has various aspects. One of the aspects is that to greet as many different people along the way. So in one way, you see many people and families. There will be old people who are not able to go out. There will be people before you go ahead of them and you greet them on the way, etc. And the other way, you have an opportunity to see other people and greet them, which may have finished the salah and accelerated home. And possibly they may have prepared something like a gift to the Prophet or the people coming, like in Arabia, for example, they prepare coffee and send other people passing and giving coffee and wish the good Eid and things like that. So you see more people come to know more Muslim brothers and sisters. That's one. Another one is a symbolism that hopefully the past year with all its events will be passed, and we have a new year with another event, another better events, possibly things like that. Various kinds of symbolism, but this is established by the action of the Prophet by divine revelation, not by someone inventing jahiliyyah according to his thoughts about meme and about symbolism. And in any case, he entered the house from the door. He never entered from the back of the door. And this is a fundamental principle. Anything which can be entered should be entered from its appropriate door, as a way of entrance. As I said, that's general principle. And the people have adopted that. If you do something, try, for example, a handcraft, they will tell you, you did not learn the proper way, you did not get into the house with its own door. You should have done the apprenticeship properly. Then you would have become a good hammersmith or a good goldsmith. But you didn't do the correct way, so you'll never be doing it the right way. Do it from there. Do the apprenticeship, do the learning, do the studying properly, then you will be possibly a good hammersmith or goldsmith or a good builder or something like that. But you do it haphazardly, you go from dark doors, shortcuts, it doesn't work.